I've been looking for a house with no walls or no whispers, no hiding places, no secret sister. Been looking for a house that won't shelter a lie, no tear-stained past or reason to cry. I wanna live in a house of love.
Greetings. Welcome to Empowering Women Everywhere. And today our guest is Stephen Gottlieb, and he is an emotional freedom technique
practitioner.
Mm-hmm. And he is located actually in Westchester, right?
I'm located in Westchester. Most of the work I do is universal. I work on the phone a lot.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You work on the phone,
Yeah.
and he has a lot of organizations that he is involved with. What he really wanted to talk about today is an amazing technique that he uses.
Called Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT. A lot of people have heard about this thing called tapping, or meridian-based therapies, and that's what it is. It's a technique that anybody can learn to use to help mitigate the negative effects of stress in their life. That sounds like a good thing, right?
It sounds like a wonderful thing. So he actually has a Bachelor of Science background in electromagnetic or electric...
Not that fancy.
Okay.
Electrical engineering.
Electrical engineering. So he studied that, and then he came in contact with this technique, and he's been helping a lot of people.
About 30 years later.
About 30 years later.
Yeah.
So, and it works, he's working with an organization that's a not-for-profit organization that's called youcanthrive.org.
You Can Thrive provides holistic health services, alternative and complementary health services to women who are breast cancer patients. And as you can imagine, people in that position have all different kinds of stress in their lives. And the people who fund this organization understand the importance of mitigating stress and the effectiveness of techniques like emotional freedom technique. So myself and a few other volunteers who are specialists in emotional freedom technique give our time.
Right.
So I work with several people a week on the phone now.
Helping them.
Teaching them the technique and helping them maybe get over a particular situation in their life that is coming up that's very stressful.
Right.
You know, as you know, stress diminishes our body's ability to heal.
Right.
And to be well. So this is very important.
So it's important to learn how to control your stress so that your body can heal.
Right, and most people think they can control their stress by using their mind, by figuring out how to solve the problem, but sometimes you can't do that, and the mind says, I can't solve the problem, so the body goes into stress. You know, it's the same fight or flight mechanism that our, ancient ancestors used to mobilize the body's energy system to run away from, saber-toothed tigers and things of that nature. And because of our world doesn't have saber-toothed tigers anymore, our brain is still trying to look around to find signals for things that are dangerous. And if we are seeing a problem that is troublesome,
right,
or a situation that somehow feels threatened, and we don't feel that we've got a good solution for it, and we can't find the solution for it, our brain is going to trigger off the same fight or flight response, which is stress-induced stress, mental-induced stress.
Right.
Yeah. So the technique, emotional freedom technique, is literally a body-centered practice where we focus on the stress, we feel the actual stress in our body,
right,
which is not in our mind worrying about the problem, but in the body as tension, as fear, as anxiety, as tightness in the body someplace, or as an emotion that comes up. And when you tap on the body, you're giving yourself an acupuncture-like treatment, which is signaling the body's nervous system to take that stress that you're thinking about and input. It's not stress. This is a relaxation response. And the part of the brain that is conditioned to think that this situation you're thinking about produces stress response in the body reconditions itself so it no longer produces the stress. So now you're able to at least think about the problem without going into stress.
Into stress.
Yeah, right. So now you can think more clearly, because when you're in stress, you really can't think clearly. Neuroscience tells us that when we're in that kind of stress, we don't have access to the part of our brain that is the creative thinker.
Now, is this something that you do to yourself?
You can do it to yourself. Absolutely, you do it to yourself. When I'm coaching people on the phone, I'm coaching them how to do it. Now, of course,
Okay.
I'm guiding them to learn how to tweak the technique so that it works for them.
Right.
But anybody can learn how to do it. That's why I put a lot of resources on my website, and I have information that I hand out to people to show them how to do it. And I teach classes, and I lead workshops and seminars, and introduce people who may have never heard of this to us in a series of seminars at senior centers and other kinds of places like that.
Right. So if there's a senior center that would like to have you
Mhm.
come in to speak, you
Yes.
do workshops for
I
the residents.
absolutely do. Hmm.
Well, that's a great
Yeah.
thing to know about. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of resources on your website.
Yes, there are.
There was also something that I saw, which was the Veteran Stress Project.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you how that came about. This tapping thing, which is best known as emotional freedom technique, has so much potential to help people in so many different ways that the person who created it, who also, by the way, has a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering and never used it for that purpose, he said, let's see what happens when we get a group together of Vietnam vets who are still
Oh,
suffering extreme post-traumatic stress.
Right.
Now, these are people who had access to the country's best healthcare system, but yet for 20 years they're still afraid to go to sleep at night because they might wake up in a terror with their hands around their wife's throat,
Right.
thinking they're someplace else. So this is extreme. And these are the kind of people who said, yeah, well, we've tried everything, so this tapping thing is going to help me? Good luck. But within 4 or 5 days, 80% of the people that they worked with were reduced clinically below the threshold for measurable post-traumatic stress and remained permanent.
Oh my goodness.
So that's quite a shocking thing. And when you realize you can help people at that level, you want to tell everybody about it. And
Exactly.
as more word got out about it, you would try it on different things, and all different kinds of amazing things would happen. People's phobias and fears would drop away. And as people continued to use it, they started to realize that their physical aches and pains would go away. And the more you looked at it from a somewhat of a clinical perspective, you can see that all of the science that was starting to show that unresolved emotional trauma is really at the root cause of stress
Right.
that could continue over at some point untreated to end up with physical symptoms, then it explains why the physical symptoms get better. So it's important that people know at least how to manage their stress, and if people have specific situations that have been long-standing that they feel that they can't get over, they may see, they've been seeking out counseling from a medical health professional, but those things talk about the problem. The
Right.
problem we're dealing with here is the energy of the stress itself that is triggering off the body's nervous system.
Okay.
So with this technique, you have something that you can do yourself. So when you do feel stress, you can start tapping on the body in a very specific way, and it's very easy to learn because once you learn the basic technique is the same every time.
Right.
And you immediately can start to feel your stress levels drop. And if you can focus on a particular issue in your life, either something that's happening now, something you're afraid of that might be happening in the future, or something that is traumatic from the past, bringing up that memory may still bring up this sense of stress.
Right.
That's how you know that the energetic memory of that trauma is still there. And by focusing on that while you're tapping, you are also deactivating the part of the brain that associates that memory with your current level of stress. And you can free yourself from the emotions, the negative emotions that are still stir up or still might be triggered off by something now that's happening that's really just triggering off an old emotional wound.
Right. Now, so your website is empoweryourtrueself.com.
That's right.
And your phone number is, do you want to use
914-997-7873.
Right. And on the website, there's all kinds of resources that you can hook into that you
Mhm.
have available, and
Yeah.
you've been so generous to put up
Yeah.
other people's websites
Oh,
and
well.
other information.
Well, this is healing work. When you're doing healing work, you want to give people the ability to see what's of interest to them and give them as much resources as possible. I can try to replicate the resources myself, but there's so many people out there who regularly have already done the work
Right.
that this is the work that I'm drawing off of, so I might as well let people have access to the same thing.
Right. Now, if someone has had a situation where they did have breast cancer, or
Yeah.
they're facing cancer now,
Yeah.
or if they're a veteran, they can
Yeah.
go on your website and find out how they can get, free counseling and sign
Well,
up
yeah, the
for
first
it.
thing they might want to do is take a look there on the website and see what resources might be interested in. But they can always call me, and I can give them a consultation and see whether working with me personally would be something that they might want to do.
Right.
And I would always adjust my fees according to people's needs.
Well, that's very interesting. I
Yeah.
know that with what happened just recently in Paris,
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of people in Paris.
There are a
that-
lot of people in Paris, because when you see something like that, you become traumatized.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And there's a group of like the Veteran Stress Project. There are other people who do various different forms of energy psychology, of which emotional freedom technique is one method, who have gone all over the world to help people who were traumatized by earthquakes and floods and other kinds of things, war, crimes, to great effectiveness.
Right.
To great effectiveness. Changes people's lives.
My son-in-law's brother was in the theater when that happened
Hmm.
on Friday, so I think this
In
would-
Paris.
In Paris, I think
Yeah.
this would be very helpful for
Yeah,
him.
it would be interesting to see what level of what level of fear he's still carrying, because it's still fresh. So to learn the technique, at least you can desensitize yourself to that trauma.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're never going to be worried and nervous anytime you see somebody standing there with a gun, but at least you won't be hyper vigilant, which is something that, of course, taxes our stress response.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
hyper vigilant
Yeah.
now, and I was in the U.S. when it happened.
Yeah,
I just can't imagine.
yeah.
But to have a technique that could actually go and alleviate and
Yeah.
be able to let you start again without
Absolutely.
the stress and without
Yeah.
the, making yourself sick about the
Yeah.
event.
Sure, sure.
Now, there's other forms of work that you do.
There are. I didn't start off doing this tapping thing. Tapping was something that I learned as part of a lot of different programs that I was involved with in the healing arts.
Right.
And it was quite a shock for me to discover that I had a real talent for doing intuitive healing work, at the midpoint of my life.
Right.
Because previous than that was various different kinds of business pursuits. And as I opened up to more and more and more, I saw what worked, and I gravitated to certain things, and tapping was one of the things that I gravitated to.
And you were a golf instructor at one
No.
point? No.
Oh, no. I'm a ski instructor. I've been
A
doing
ski
that. I've been doing that for 30 years. But you do see that on my website I have a program for golfers. Well, golfers know now. If you watch any major tournaments, you'll see this. I mean, you've already got people who are at already a trained level of excellence. But what's the difference between winning and losing? It's that in the zone factor. If you're in the zone and you've been winning and everything you do is lined up and there's no stress, and you've seen some examples, beautiful
Yes.
examples on the PGA Tour this year, where people can come out and consistently play the best and win tournaments. So any golfer knows that if they're stressed or they're distracted, chances are the ball's not going to go where they want to. So if the ball doesn't go where they want to and they get upset about it, now you know that there's an emotional component to it. So
It makes
it's
it
not
worse.
right, exactly. So it makes it worse. So once you get rid of the emotional causes of the stress, after all, it's just a ball. I mean, your only fear is hitting it in the wrong spot. So very often you'll see people who aren't allowed in their professional lives to really express frustration and emotion and disappointment, and it just comes out on the golf course, and I've had pros tell me that they watch people get so upset that they'll take their whole bag of clubs, $2,000 worth of clubs, and dump them in the lake. That's it, I'm done. So at that point that there's a mind and there's an emotion that is not working in harmony there. So I teach people peak performance skills, and I get rid of the underlying belief systems that would prevent them from playing better golf than they have the ability to.
Now, what's the skiing thing that you do?
Well, the skiing thing is really a mindfulness-based program called Skiing in the Zone. And after spending about 20 years trying to figure out why some days I skied wonderfully and had a great time, and other days, no matter what I wanted to do, my body just wouldn't do it. It was really came down to understanding that I just wasn't in the zone that day. So what does in the zone mean? Well, through all of the various different techniques I've been trained in, neurolinguistic programming, creative visualization, positive affirmations, all of these things are tools that you can use to integrate in what you want to do. But the biggest thing was the lack of awareness that I saw in students especially. So if the student is not able to be so aware of what's going on in their mind that their mind is distracting them from what they're feeling under their feet, then they're not able to sense where the best balance point is.
Right.
And the interesting thing with skiing is it's a wonderful metaphor for our everyday life, because when skiing has a built-in down the hill.
Right.
And what enables people is the ability to stay with the skis as they go downhill.
Right.
And what disables people is saying, it's scary if I go down the hill, so let me throw my skis this way. So you're resisting what is, you're resisting gravity, you're pushing the ski away, which takes you naturally out of balance. And when you're in balance on the skis and flowing with the gravity, the skis arc beautiful turns all by themselves, and your body goes, this is wonderful, I'm elated. It automatically creates this in the zone experience. But if you're fearful at all,
Right.
it blocks the flow, it blocks the balance, and that metaphor is the same thing with anything we struggle in life. So I basically teach people mindfulness.
Okay.
And from mindfulness, then we blend it into skills. And by their own example of what's happening and not happening on the snow, they can learn that they can empower themselves to change their physiological state so that they can more often put themselves exactly where they'd like to be for the maximum amount of performance.
And they can go with the flow.
It only
Instead
happens.
of
Only
resisting.
happens when you're going with the flow, and it's very, very obvious there. It's not so obvious to the golfer. What's obvious to the golfer is when they hit the ball, they see where the ball goes, and they have a score. It's not obvious for the skiers because as long as they're standing up when they get to the bottom of the hill, they can go, "Oh, I'm a success.
I
This is
made
great."
it.
Right? But they may not understand that there's more that they can get out. And when you get the skis to work for you, it's just an exciting feeling that skiers really want to keep coming back. And it could be anything in life. It's just not skiers. So anybody who is hoping to have a more personal performance in life needs to know about some of these tools and some of these methods so that you just can treat their day-to-day situations more effectively and with less effort and less stress and more creative potential for their maximum performance, their in-the-zone ability to naturally flow and everything seems to be going right. There's something going on there.
So now you do workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do a workshop for a senior center. You
Yes.
can do it for. I'm in contact with the Valley View over here in Goshen.
Yeah.
You could do a workshop for those people that
Sure.
are in there, and
Sure.
so if anyone is interested in having Stephen do a workshop, they
Yes.
should give him a call.
You should.
And if you know anyone that's suffering as a veteran.
Mm-hmm. Or anybody who's suffering. I mean, you might have a 10-year-old at home who's suffering because of some trauma that happened in school. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And we normally think that we need to send people to the psychologist, or sometimes we need to give people medication. But the real trouble with our suffering very often is the disturbance in the body's energy system from these traumas,
From the
and they can
trauma.
be effectively dealt with good guidance from a coach like myself who can teach them and lead them through a process of tapping. And it's so easy to do that we want everybody to know that these techniques are available to help them with almost anything. Literally, almost sounds too good to be true. And of course, we have that old notion: if it sounds too good to be true, it must be. But that's the exciting world. The exciting world is we see so many things change for so many people, sometimes so easily, that it would be terrible not to share that. Originally in my programs, I use visualizations because visualizations are very powerful. So in order for you to create what you want, there's this idea that you have to be able to visualize what it is that you want. And by visualizing, there's some magical process that the brain creates that allows the energy of our thought to somehow create it. And the law of attraction is based entirely upon that idea. But in my empowerment work, what I do is I look for places, belief systems that might not be consciously aware of that says, no, I can't have that. So when you try to just think positively or think creatively, There might be a part of us that says, well, why bother? Because I've never had anything like that work for me, or, I don't trust it, I don't believe it, or it's not safe for me to have these miraculous things that I want to happen in my life. And it's the same problem in the brain. The brain creates a little stress response every time you try to think positively when your belief system has been conditioned to say, no, it's not right for me to have that, or it's not safe for me, or I don't believe I can. And we do a form of muscle testing, which is enabling us to have a biofeedback mechanism to see exactly what the subconscious says. So anytime I find a place where the subconscious is saying no, when our desire would be, yes, we want this,
Right.
Then I have these techniques that I can use to basically rescript the programming in the brain so that anything that would say no to what we want is neutralized and eliminated. And I wrote a lot about that on my golf website called golfempowermentzone.com to try to explain how that works. And that particular technique really is the hallmark of my individual empowerment coaching with people. When people say I have a problem, the first thing I intuit and I test for them is, all right, well, let's say I can find a creative solution to this problem, or I can get over this problem. And if their subpsyche is saying no, and I can energetically test that, I fix that for them first. And then we talk about practical ways of doing it, and then we go look for the places in their body where they're feeling emotion or stress about
Right.
it, and then we can do the tapping to eliminate that so that the brain rescripts it as well.
So it's more or less reprogramming the bad programming you got as a child.
Yeah, it pretty much is. Pretty much is
Yeah.
is reprogramming the bad program.
And it's not, some of us it's not because of our parents, it's just because of how we interpreted what was happening to us at the time.
That's right. And we might still be thinking our parents were bad parents, but, they were just doing what they were doing.
They were doing the best they could with what they had.
The challenge is that most of the development conditioning happens before we're 6 or 7 years old, and something bad happens, and it might really be something that's bad that's happening, but, you have a 4 or 5-year-old brain who's trying to assess a belief system based upon that, and that becomes encoded, and here we are 40 years later, still believing that things in our life work along the same patterns based upon the wisdom of a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old, that, was traumatized by the fact that his parents had a bad day.
Right.
Or something
Or
like that.
also, it could have nothing to do with that situation at all. I know that when I studied acting at the academy with David Wilson, when you develop a character, you go back to that character when they were 5 or 6 and something traumatic happened that would have changed that person or altered their being, which is, I think, what you're touching into here. And then you create that character based on what happened to that child when he was 5 or 6. And each person has that moment of the moment of their failure to be.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah.
And it could be just as a result of, having 30 kids in a room and not time for one of them to have a drink.
I'll tell you a perfect example of something that showed up in one of my workshops yesterday. And the process of using emotional freedom technique gives you the chance to dialogue and to see what's going on. So there was a person who had a particular issue that she wanted some resolution on. It was basically weight. And something happened in her youth. And all of a sudden, it was harder for her to keep the weight off. And as an adult, she still has the problem. And of course, she's tried everything. And I'm thinking, all right, well, what happened? What changed during that time? And she didn't remember. And she'd been to, like I said, lots of different coaching, and it wasn't coming up. But we took some specific examples of things that were happening now that stressed her out until she actually felt the stress and the emotion in the body. And as we start working through that, we're peeling the protective layers away until all of a sudden an idea shows up. And I said, well, where did that idea come from? And all of a sudden, she remembered exactly what it was. When she was still young and still thin, she was playing in the yard, the schoolyard one day, and she was a textbook student, perfect in everything.
Right.
And one day, she was, recess is over, and she was the last one in line, and the person in front of her locked the door, and she couldn't get in.
Oh, my goodness.
So she had to go around the front of the school and get a late pass, and that late pass was now everything in her life was perfect, but anytime they reviewed her record, well, she has an attendance problem for the one time. And she was carrying this. And I said, oh, by the way, did the weight gain start after that? Oh, yes, it did. So sometimes we would, that's what I mean by these little miracles show up. You would never make one connection to another.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden now we have something that really still carries the memory of the hurt and the pain. And now this poor person has been conditioned. Here's something that even with all our effort to be perfect, things happen in life that you have no control over. It was a complete accident. And we didn't have a chance to describe a lot of ways that she might still be suffering for that. But, you can be pretty sure they're there. So we cleared that out.
Good.
We spent time applying the EFT to the memory of that time when she was literally traumatized because through no fault of her own, she was forced to have a late on her attendance, ruin her perfect record. Why she needed to be perfect, I don't know. I'm not going in there.
One.
Some people just are. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Dawson Church, who's on my resources, is a person who teaches emotional freedom technique to all types of professionals for certification. And I was just assisting him in one of his workshops. And he tells a story about his young son who had a very nice life growing up, and then they sent him off to school. And then one day he comes home from school and he's really upset. And you see the kid being upset. So what's wrong? What's wrong? And he said, his son said, Daddy, there's a kid in school that doesn't like me.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the first time he came to realize that you might run into people in life that actually don't like you. You know? It's the first time for everything. So these are wonderful things.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for telling our audience about all the great and wonderful things that you're doing and how they can affect everyone's life.
Well, certainly, because when you fix parts of your life, all the people that you're involved with, they will feel the positive impact.
Cool. And if they don't feel the positive, you can start tapping them.
No, it's amazing how many relationships with work and with with other spouses and relatives change when I work on a problem with a person.
Yes.
Because energetically, they're just different now.
Yeah.
And if you're in a relationship with somebody, there's an energetic connection. And I know that. There's my electrical engineering background and understands that relationship.
Exactly.
And even though there aren't wires, we know that there's energy. And it's amazing how things get fixed when we fix ourselves.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen.
You're welcome. Oh, there we go. My pleasure.